Oh, thanks for doing that as well. Okay, great. Who was over near Italy or Greece or something? Now it's gone.
Croatia. I think it's Croatia.
Oh, Croatia. I love that area. It's so beautiful. Well, great. Well, welcome everybody, and thank you so much for being patient. That was kind of a whole thing. Okay, again, I'm Donna Roman, and this is Maura O'Keefe. I'm in a town named Geneva, very near Chicago, Illinois. Okay, Maura, maybe you can do that quick in case anyone just joined.
Okay. I suppose me and Donna and I met on Twitter, and when I wanted to work online with a group of 32 students who were in 5th class, which is the same as 5th grade, I looked at the possibility of working online, and one of the first things I was advised to do by Catherine Cronin, a friend of mine here in Ireland, she suggested I get onto Twitter and follow and lurk and learn. So I did the summer before last, and one of the first things I saw was using data to make sense of the world, a project that Donna was doing, so of course I signed up for it. And I suppose our connection and collaboration grew from there, because I hadn't a clue how to do anything, and Donna was fantastic in telling me how to work a wiki and how to upload stuff. And so it's been a really good learning journey for me, having met Donna. And then one day I got a tweet from Donna, and she asked if we would like to do writing on a similar topic. And they had been doing Mrs. O'Leary and the Chicago fire and all of that. So I suggested looking at the life of Captain Francis O'Neill, who was born in Ireland but who ended up in Chicago.
That started the whole thing. And then our project, before I get going, I just want to tell you it was picked up by Microsoft Partners in Learning as a learning activity. And it was also the learning activity that I submitted as part of a proposal for expert educator through Microsoft. And I actually got that. I'm going to Barcelona in March, which will be great. But they loved our project. So I'm glad you're here to listen about it, because we really enjoyed it.
So these are our two schools. I teach in St. Joseph's National School, Kinvara, County Galway, and that's my class from last year, and I have the same group of children this year. I am so lucky, and one of them has joined our group, my son, so he's lurking and watching. And then Mill Creek School, Geneva, Illinois. Donna, do you want to talk about them?
This is my kids from last year. They're in 6th grade this year, but they just love this project. The project, it was Maura's idea to follow this man, and Maura's a musician, so this man is a musician and really loved Irish music, and he was actually considered the savior of Irish music, and I guess Maura can tell you more about that. But we picked him, or actually decided on him, because he started off in their area of Ireland on a farm, and that's his house on the left, and he actually ended up in the city of Chicago, and the picture on the right is Chicago, and it's actually in my daughter's neighborhood, because this is down the street from her apartment, and this is one of the areas that he worked as a police officer, which was so coincidental. And it was a perfect project because it connected both of our worlds.
Yeah, well, Captain Francis O'Neill, he was born, Daniel Francis O'Neill, he was born in 1848. And he was born in a small place called Challiban, which is way down near Bantry in County Cork. So it's down towards the south of Ireland. And 1848 was an interesting year because you saw the size of his house in the last photograph. And 1848, Ireland was coming out of 3 of the blackest years of the potato famine, where the potato failed, and it was the main food of a whole group of people, and on the lower level of the scale, I suppose. But it doesn't seem to have affected Francis O'Neill. It didn't. His family were well-to-do farmers. So he ran away to sea at about the age of 16. So he was a real adventurer as well. Spent a lot of time on ships, going around the world. And he actually met his wife, who was from County Clare in Ireland, Anna Rogers, on a ship on the way to America, where they eventually ended up in Chicago. He was a musician. He played music at home. He grew up in a house which was really a huge amount of music, traditional Irish music in the house. There was a piper played at the crossroads down the road from them. And he played the flute mainly. Also played the fiddle, but played the flute was the main instrument. And he got to Chicago and believed that Irish music was dying at that time, at the end of the 1800s. And so he gathered together lots of the Irish musicians who had emigrated after the famine and who had emigrated to America, and he gathered them together and apparently gave them jobs in the police force when he had risen up the ranks. And he used to gather them together and he'd arrange for the tunes that they played to be written down by a man called James O'Neill, who was also Irish but with no relation. So really the publications that he did at that time was the largest publication of Irish traditional music ever published. And he really is, as Donna said, considered the saviour of Irish music through these publications.
So how do you go about taking a project that was, you know, it's historical, there's a lot of geography, there's culture involved, and there's both countries involved, and how do you rein that in and make it a project that works with your curriculum and your standards and the age group of your children? And so we kind of decided on these questions. We'd like to talk about his life and see what exactly you could learn by just studying one person's life from beginning to end that touched both continents, each one of our cities, and what could we learn? So since we do the Common Core State Standards in the United States, my questions and everything were geared towards writing and the research and everything with my standards. So our questions are broad so that we could each both adapt them and still work together.
We did a lot of our work through KidBlog, which is the most amazing online tool for help for, and one of the safest, I think, online tools for having children collaborate with each other and present their work. So you see two posts there. One was the Great Chicago Fire, was posted by Anna, who was in my class, I think. And she would have learned a lot about that from Donna's class. And then we have a post by Justin from Donna's room at O'Neill, the man who saved Irish music. And it was just so interesting that children in Ireland were writing about what was happening in Chicago at the time, and children in Chicago were writing about what was happening in Ireland. So they were learning about their cultures and their history and their geography and their, of course, mainly culture as well.
And it was great to have them read and respond to each other's writing. And I absolutely love blogging. I've been teaching writing for over 15 years, and I don't think there's any way that has been better that I've ever used to encourage kids to write, to have them write for authentic purpose, and read and respond to each other's writing, and it's been amazing. So not only did they research topics that were kind of self-selected within our umbrella of questions, then they learned from each other by reading and responding, and absolutely love this. If your class isn't blogging right now, I'd really encourage you to check it out. And KidBlog, as Maura was saying, is really a safe environment. You can moderate every single comment that your children read. It's actually a great thing. And this is when our classes first met. It was great, and because Maura's in Europe, it was easy to have a time to meet because we just had to get ready right away in the morning when we got in, and I think, Maura, you ended up staying a little bit later that day. So there wasn't like huge amounts of time. I think there's 6 hours difference, so we could meet on Skype one day.
Yeah, we did. I think we were just about getting ready to go home because I remember the day we talked about what your children were going to have for their lunch, and my children talked about what they had just had for their lunch. So it was an interesting,
I remember that, yeah.
Look at the time, you know, they were saying what they were going to have, and my crowd were saying what they had for their lunch. So it was great.
And it was so interesting
because, I think.
Yeah, this is one of those times when we had set the plan up. The kids were online writing a little bit and doing some research, and they were working with these students, but they had never actually seen them yet. And it's kind of an interesting thing trying to get kids to realize they're working with real human beings on the other end because everything's online. So when they first see each other, it's just an amazing sight because they looked at them like, oh, you're all have the same clothes on, and they had uniforms and we didn't, and they were just those kid things. And they talked, as Maura was saying, they talked about what they ate for breakfast and lunch, and after that connection, the project shifted from the kids' perspective, because when they were responding to each other, it was then kids that they had seen before and they could connect to.
We use music, I suppose, as a connection. The class that I have, there's a lot of musicians in the group, and one day we did a Skype and we played a beautiful piece of music called In a Sheer, which is written by a man called Thomas Walsh, and he wrote it when he had visited the Aran Islands, mainly In a Sheer. There's 3 islands off the coast of Ireland, and they're they're beautiful, beautiful islands. Irish language is spoken there all the time, and so we played that for them, for Donna's class, and then Donna's class came and Skyped another day, and they had just learned the American National Anthem, and they sang it for us in Ireland. So it was a very special connection, having music, particularly since Francis O'Neill, the man that we were doing the project on, was a musician and was so passionate about music and song and preserving it and continuing with it.
I see a question in the chat from Susanna about information about Francis O'Neill. You would be surprised, there actually was quite a bit of information about him. There's even a society in Ireland dedicated just to him and his music, and it was a man I had never heard of in my life. My kids had never heard of him, and we learned so much from that man.
Yeah.
Okay, and yeah, I forgot. Go ahead, hon.
No, I was just going to say about the Traditional Music Archive as well in Ireland, and they're online. You can find the ITMA, Irish Traditional Music Archive. There's also an archive in Milwaukee for the Milwaukee Irish Fest, and they have an excellent archive. But I think the best place to find information at this point about Francis O'Neill is to go to the wiki that Donna set up and that we put our links onto wherever we had information. And of course our kid blogs, because the information is there too.
Oh, we have just a ton from the kids, you're right. And Maura, could you talk about the voice thread a little bit, because I think I found our link and I'll put it on for everybody.
Okay, the voice thread, when Donna suggested that we put something onto the voice thread, I had no idea what voice thread was, so here we go again. Had to find out something new. So she talked me through it, and we still had trouble, but to be honest, it was the children in the class who worked out. I have a headset from the class, and one of the kids brought in a headset, and we eventually got to record, and we were so delighted with ourselves when we got to upload the voices, and the children gave their little bit of information about Francis O'Neill, and it went with maybe the pictures that Donna had set up. We also worked on, for voice thread, giving avatars rather than using the children's photographs. So they actually did artwork making their own avatars. We photographed them and we uploaded them. But the interesting thing was that in the blog, Donna's children were actually commenting, and they were saying, when are we going to hear your voices? Because we already had heard some of theirs because they were proficient. So voice thread is this most amazing tool for allowing children to do reflections on their work and to record the information that they've learned. So it really records their learning as well. And I think it was just great when we heard different voices. If you get a chance, anybody, go into the voice thread and the wiki and listen to the different accents of the children talking about Francis O'Neill, a man who was born in Ireland with an Irish accent probably, and ended up as the chief of police in Chicago. It was an amazing story, really.
And this is a perfect example of how we all start when we're not really familiar with technology, and all you need is just someone to kind of push you along a little bit. And I know that's the way I learned, and we just kind of did it step by step, because I know when Maura started, she was really uncomfortable and really nervous about everything, and I just walked her through little by little, and you should see her now. She's just amazing, so it's been a lot of fun.
Thank you.
It's been great. Okay, and here's really the key to everything. I mean, this worked great for us because this man touched both of our cities, and you know, that's a perfect thing. But how do you do that with you? The first thing you really have to do is to find a teacher to work with, and this is an amazing process. It's fun, and it requires a little bit of investigative work. And we met on Twitter, as I have met a lot of people on Twitter. And when you find a good partner, you really want to cultivate that relationship and not let time go by and not talk to each other, because it's not as easy as it seems to find a partner that's reliable, that will show up, that follows through, that you actually can work with from beginning to end. A lot of people start and they get overwhelmed and then they're gone. And it's really, I've made a point of cultivating those relationships, and I'm very glad I have. It's just a network that I've grown little by little, and I know a lot of other teachers have done that. So Twitter's a great place to start. And the next thing you need to do with a project like this is find an element. It can be a common element, as Maura and I found with Frances O'Neill, but sometimes it's not a person or something that's common, but a topic that's common. I know a woman that I worked with in New York, our common element was natural disasters. And we learned about geography throughout the world through natural disasters that happened that year. And we'd have to learn about the different environments and the weather and latitude and longitude and different tectonic plates and how that all fits together. So that was our common element. So that's the easy part, finding a common element. And then you plan a project together. And the most important thing, and I should have just highlight that next one, is to adapt to your curricular standards. Nobody has time to do anything extra. We are too busy. We have way too many things to cover in our classroom already. So unless it fits into your curriculum, we don't have time for it. So you just need to look into your standards, figure out what you're going to teach, and adapt your project to make sure that you're incorporating those things and assessing them within your project. And then try some new tools. That's, little by little, next thing you know, you have a whole toolbox full of tools. You just have to keep trying stuff little by little, and actually it gets easier. The more tools you use, the easier they are to use, and stay connected. That's the most important thing, is to stay connected and start building your network. Maura, do you have any last words before I take questions?
Well, I thought it was really interesting that you said, that you need to cultivate the partner and just keep them going, because certainly I got a little bit overwhelmed with the using data project initially, because I just couldn't get my head around uploading stuff and photographs and data and do you remember that at the start? I was really, yeah. I was the weak link. But, you kept at me and it was great. Yeah. So it worked out.
I know a lot of people have written things in the chat, and I'm sorry, but I have not been able to follow it while I've been presenting. So if anyone wants to take the mic or type another question in the chat, I hope I gave you my privileges to talk. So feel free to click the talk button and make a comment or have a question.
Okay, I don't know if there's anybody else on mic. Is there Gail? Okay. Maybe he's on mic? No?
Okay, and I don't see any questions in the chat, so I hope you find us. I put in the chat the wiki address.
Put the link, yeah.
Okay. Susanna wants to know more about the music curriculum in each school. I don't teach music. I know that, Maura, you're more involved with that. We do have music that the kids go to, and the music teacher, she did come and help me with my music part of it. And as far as meeting the standards and benchmarks in the arts, I don't know, because that isn't my area. It might have with the music teacher, but I was more concerned about the language arts and social studies curriculum on my end.
And at my end, we're expected to teach everything. We call it the overcrowded curriculum. I'm one teacher. I'm there from the start right through to the end of the day, and we have a ridiculous amount of subjects that we're supposed to get through, and music would be one. But as a musician myself, I play Irish traditional music, play the fiddle, so I love teaching music, so that's great. But I'm also expected to do science, and I'm not that great at science. So, we have to adapt to our own talents or abilities as well. And I know it's different in the States. So that's how it worked in ours. Music curriculum, we do have a music curriculum, but it really depends how much of it, how much it's done or how well it's done, depends on the teacher. Well,
thanks so much for following along, and feel free to check out our wiki, and most of all, please check out the rest of the schedule for the Global Education Conference. There's some excellent things going on, so I hope to see you in another room. And follow us on Twitter. I think we have our name on there somewhere on the very first one. Hopefully we have our Twitter thing on there, do we? Maybe not.
But I know that it was on
right
there.
there.
We can put.
There we both are on that slide. There's Maura's up there, and mine is at Donna Roban. And, oh, it is in the chat. Okay, and thank you so much for coming.